Hello Loki fans, welcome back here. Only some characters in the MCU have an adventurous life nearly as good as Loki, whose narrative and that of his companions have provided endless opportunities for speculations that might drastically change the God of Mischief's trajectory. From Asgardian family conflict to intergalactic political scheming to an arcane voyage across the multiverse's histories, Loki's tenure in the MCU films and his own TV show has been especially turbulent. It makes sense that during the course of his grueling and protracted trip, a number of noteworthy hypotheses have emerged that cast his difficulties in a fresh light. One of Marvel's most beloved anti-heroes appeared to have a satisfying arc in the Season 2 finale of Loki, solidifying his position as the god of stories over the several histories of the new universe. It is possible, though, that Loki may re-enter the fray, and this theory appears to be supported by a number of complex hypotheses. Beyond that, the relationship between Loki's supporting cast and the god himself may come into doubt, which may change the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe is perceived. Here are some theories that could totally change the MCU we currently look at. Number 1. The connection between Loki and the Time Stone. In contrast to many other Marvel characters, Loki has always had a special fondness for and connection with a particular hue. He consistently dresses in emerald green and uses illusion magic that, when twisted, turns into an unsettling shade of green. In the film's climax, Loki further emphasizes his affinity for green by adopting a green tint to symbolize his newly discovered abilities as the god of stories. Loki could have a stronger bond with a particular green infinity stone, thus this continuous affiliation with one hue might not be only for show. Even though in the Avengers, Loki used the Mind Stone most frequently, it's possible that he has a stronger bond with the Time Stone. Similar to Loki, the stone's temporal abilities reflect the hue of the stone itself. Whenever it is employed, vivid green energies pulse. Given Loki's ultimate control of temporal abilities, this apparently superficial resemblance may indicate more. It might not be by accident that Loki managed to elude detection across the multiverse and that he acquired his temporal powers only because of an innate bond with the stone. Number 2. Loki must perish for the multiverse to survive. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not many characters have gone through nearly as much loss as Loki. Not only was Loki's real identity and adoption status kept a secret from him for most of his existence, but he also had to experience the loss of his mother, father, ancestral home, and power. By the time Loki concludes, he has given up even more, enunciating all chance of ever seeing his companions again, assuming the name of the god of stories, and putting his own well-being at risk in order to occupy the temporal loom's throne for all eternity. Maybe this defeat wasn't an accident. Sylvie questions sadly in the first season of Loki whether all Lokis are just doomed to lose. It looks like she was right after all. According to one hypothesis, all Loki variations serve as a kind of cosmic lightning rod, always losing so that everything else might continue to exist securely. In fact, none of the new Loki variations the MCU presents have anything like a good ending. It's even possible that Loki set himself up for failure when combined with the earlier hypothesis that He Who Remains and Loki are one and the same. Number 3. Loki's sacrifice easily fits Kangs' needs. Long after Loki had been striving for millennia to genuinely overthrow his status quo, He Who Remains had shown that there was nothing that he could do. After all, Loki appears to have prevailed, if not at considerable personal cost. It is plausible, however, that Loki's final choice to seize control of the Holy Chronology may be working in his favor if He Who Remains is really a Kang variation rather than a future Loki in disguise. The fact that Avengers: The Kang Dynasty is still scheduled to be the next significant crossover event in the Marvel Cinematic Universe serves as the strongest support for this notion. Despite the best efforts of the reorganized TVA, it is obvious that Loki will not have completely addressed the ominous prospect of further Kang incursions by the time the film is released. It's quite likely that He Who Remains had this strategy in mind when he placed Loki in this situation. Number 4. The Timekeepers Are Real. The notion that the Timekeepers, the presumed overlords of the timeline who dominated the TVA from the shadows, weren't real was one of the major revelations of Loki Season 1. Rather, He Who Remains conjured up the idea of the alien gods of time as a way to keep the TVA agents subdued and compliant even though he knew they would never obey him. However, there is no evidence to imply that the Timekeepers never existed. They could even have ruled the TVA prior to the appearance of He Who Remains. Over the years, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has gradually added more and more gods to the larger mythology of the series, starting with Eternity in Thor: Love and Thunder and continuing with the Celestials in Eternals. It's possible that the Timekeepers were a group of actual people in charge of the timeline before He Who Remains gained control of it and created the TVA for himself. This idea examines the fleeting glimpses of the Timekeepers' sculptures and suggests that they may be allusions to strong creatures found in Marvel Comics. Number 5. Original timeline Loki is still alive. When viewers last saw Loki from the original reality, he was a corpse floating across space after being strangled to death by Thanos on the Asgardian ship. Though he didn't have much screen time to savor his role as a reformed villain, Loki's selfless play did finally redeem him. But given what his version of Loki did, it's quite plausible that this character may at last make a comeback. Loki is strangely missing from the halls of Valhalla, which greeted Jane Foster with open arms at the conclusion of Thor: Love and Thunder. Given that he was eventually saved and passed away as a warrior, it's possible that the first Loki never ever passed away. His survival might be explained by his God of Stories variation warping him away just before he passes away, a feat that Loki has demonstrated is feasible, returning his newly atoned self to the cosmos to experience it through approximate means. Number 6. Brad really was the Zaniac. In Season 2 of Loki, one of the most intriguing side plots is the search for Hunter X-05, also known as Brad. Hunter X-05, who had previously fled the TVA, went on to pursue a career in acting and starred in the in-universe horror movie The Zaniac, which Brad referred to as an elevated thriller. However, Hunter X-05's extracurricular pursuits outside of the TVA could have involved far more than just role-playing monsters. Zaniac is a genuine, although little, character in Marvel Comics. The comic book Zaniac was a creature composed of a swarm of demonic parasites that lived in the Dark Dimension, the same place as Dormammu resides. There may be some precedents for Zaniac to truly make an appearance in the MCU, perhaps even serving as a host in the same way that Jack Russell did in Werewolf by Night for the Curse's titular host. Number 7. Loki can take control of his many variants. The most heartbreaking aspect of Loki's acceptance of his destiny as the God of Stories is his lack of communication with the outer world. Loki, imprisoned in the Citadel at the end of time for the foreseeable future, must live out the remainder of his days functioning as a living temporal loom, having only recently discovered true family among his fellow citizens in the TVA. However, Loki could have a means of communicating with the outer world even if it isn't totally moral. Dreamwalking is a forbidden spell in Doctor Strange's arsenal that lets the user forcefully occupy the body of one of their versions across the universe, even if they're already a decaying corpse. Doctor Strange introduced dreamwalking to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the Universe of Madness. Given his enormous increase in magical power by the conclusion of Season 2, Loki could be able to utilize dreamwalking to take on the identities of all his different personas, including Sylvie. Though it's doubtful that the redeemed Loki will act in such a way after his atonement, the Kang invasion could force his hand. It's all for now. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, like this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon.